Okay, we're going to be starting. Let's see if we can get a little music here. Is it okay if I minimize you for a second?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
It's your program.
Okay. Yes, let's do that. And I'll introduce you and then bring you on, and everybody's getting on as we speak. So yeah, let's give them about 5 minutes.
How many people we expect?
Probably about 75 to 100.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
Mm-hmm. Yes. That's probably, yeah, let me see if we can get some little music going. Yeah, there we go.
They're running fast, crossing county lines just to make my name in the city. Took everything, put it on the line, cause I never break or back down. One shot is do or die. Welcome to the bottom, years. It's all of my song, and I had to get up. Yeah, I finally got a quarter, it's a solution. I ain't such a problem, crazy, golden, all of evolution. When it broke, I got the super choppers, and they hold it for you. $7 sticks and partnership. But if you started, we gon' finish it. Get the time down, so I ain't gonna win the beat. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I'm raising time. I'm a boss, I'm a king. Crossing county lines just to make my name in the city. Took everything, put it on the line, cause I never break or back down. One shot is do or die. I'm a king, I'm raising time. They're running fast, crossing county lines just to make my name in the city. Took everything, put it on the line.
Okay, you can start right after the commercials are done.
One shot, do or die. Welcome to the bottom of me. It's all up in the song that I had to get up. Yeah, I finally got him caught up in some of the same. I ain't such a problem. They can go and go up and when I'm chewing, I'm like, God, I'm such a child. I'm saying, I'm going to open these $100. That's the part of it. But if you started, we gon' finish it. Welcome to the wild side. You know what the business is.
Put your hands up, everybody know that. Don't hold back, I'm the wrong age at. No DJ, that's DJ. Money on me, say, money on me, say.
All right, we had it on. We had our little commercials on loop. I felt I heard a little bit of feedback. Hello. So before we get started, hello everybody. Thank you guys for joining us. Let me tell you guys what's going on. So I'm Saria, and we are Team Hero of World Financial Group. You guys, our dream is so simple. It's just to change the world through education. And that's actually why we created the Black Wealth Matters educational series. We keep this as an ongoing series to introduce all Americans to industry experts to share the history, present, and best path to the future. And we actually call this educational activism. So my name is Saria Rigo, and I'm a financial professional with World Financial Group. And I thought of this series, honestly, after George Floyd, because I realized that all areas of education are important in addition to financial. And I brought this idea to my amazing team that you saw in the commercials, and they're doing all of the behind the scenes stuff. My amazing and diverse team, and they scoured the internet, and we all looked around for leaders and the industry in different sectors that we think affect our lives. And they might be people that you've never heard of, but they are still very important nevertheless. So for today, you're going to hear from Dr. Kenneth L. Harris. Our original speaker was Dr. Michael Dawson, and unfortunately, Dr. Dawson is ill and he wasn't able to join us. And what's interesting is I was actually asking Dr. Harris about this event before we found Dr. Dawson, but during the time he was busy, and so I was able to grab him. But he's going to talk to us about the history, present, and future of politics and race, and And then afterwards, I'm going to share a little bit about who we are and the story of our company. So during the event, you can type your questions in a chat room. You'll also have an opportunity to visit his website, and he has an organization that I'm sure he's going to tell you all about. And if you want to shout us out on social media, please use the hashtag at hashtag BWM series. That's also our Instagram at BWM series. So let me get started. So without further ado, I want to introduce our speaker. So Dr. Harris is actually a very interesting background. He's a historian. He's an economist. He's a entrepreneur advocate, a vegan, a yogi, a naturopathic health advocate. And he's really known for his innovative style and visionary approach to addressing social and economic challenges within the Black and Brown community and throughout the world. He is from Detroit, Michigan, just like Big Sean. Dr. Harris, do you know Big Sean?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
And he started the International Detroit Black Expo, which hosted over 1,000 exhibitors from around the globe and reached over 300,000 consumers. So there's just so much great stuff. I can go on and on about him, but I would really love for him to share what he has to say, and then we'll go from there. So Dr. Harris, let me minimize myself and you can start.
Okay, outstanding. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to this excellent platform to communicate a message. I think that is at a perfect time. And one, let me just lift you up, Saria, in the fact that you are very prominent in your field. Your experience is tremendous. And what you bring in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration to this discussion of Black wealth is critical to the movement. And so I appreciate what you and your colleagues are doing to not only make this conversation relevant, but I think in terms of where we are today and what the focus should be in terms of Black America, economics and wealth is at the top of the ticket. And so with that, I'm happy to be a part of the Black Wealth Matters educational series. I think this is an excellent platform, and we'll dig right into it in terms of my discussion today. So I have prepared a brief PowerPoint presentation as we kind of discuss what was alluded to, the political economy, which is closely tied together. And the invention of white supremacy. And, what a perfect topic at this time. And I would just, give an interlude to this discussion to say, as world hunger, climate change, crumbling infrastructure, it is clear that in today's era of fiscal constraints and political gridlock, we can no longer turn to government alone to tackle these and other towering socioeconomic problems that we face today. What's required in this new and not only provocative, more collaborative and productive economic system is what I call the solution revolution, which brings hope and revealing just as a burgeoning new economy plays with new players and new ideas and new innovation from across the spectrum of business, government, philanthropic, and social enterprise coverage to solve big problems and to create public-private value in terms of what we must do to bring solutions to the marketplace. By erasing public and private sector boundaries. And what I mean by this is Black people have always wanted to be a part of the economic mainstream of society, period. We were entrepreneurs during slavery, although our story did not start with slavery. We are the founders of civilization. We are the birthers of humanity and humankind. and we can trace back our genius and our entrepreneurial exploits all the way to the beginning of time. And so with that, again, as I mentioned, by erasing the public and private sector, these boundaries that have existed due to the political economy, the solution economy helps us to unlock trillions of dollars in socioeconomic benefit and commercial value. This is where we teach and go after tough societal problems that persist. New problem solvers are now crowdfunding, ride sharing, app developing, and impacting and investing in designing innovation, new solutions for seemingly untrackable problems that exist in the marketplace. So providing low-cost healthcare, fighting poverty, creating renewable energy, preventing health disparities and obesity are just a few of the tough challenges that face us today, with tremendous opportunities for those at the vanguard of this movement. And this is a movement that's taking place. They create marketplace for social goods, trade solutions instead of dollars to fill the gap between what government can provide and what the citizens need and what the private sector must embrace. So government, again, cannot handle alone the huge challenges facing our global society. It must be a collaborative effort, and it shouldn't just be on one particular entity. We are now an interwoven collaborative group and network, sophisticated global network of bright minds and innovation. We need a different economic paradigm that can bring flexibility, that draws upon these resources, combines efforts, creates value while improving the lives of future tomorrow and our citizens, which are becoming majority Black and brown within the next 10 to 30 years. So, I wanted to highlight that as we go into the next slide. Just a little bit about myself. I'm born and raised in Detroit. Very proud to attend the HBCU. I could bounce a ball pretty well. Played point guard at the University of Clark Atlanta University, which is a historically Black college and university within the Atlanta University complex in Atlanta, Georgia. It is where, I was around the best and brightest, the best and brightest Black minds in the world. And so I had a chance to see Black excellence at its best. I did my bachelor's and first master's there. I did my educational specialist degree at Wayne State University, and I have a dual PhD in economics and Black studies from Michigan State University. So I've been both on the intellectual side, heavily involved in the educational sector, where I was in an administrative capacity at higher educational institutions. I was elected to public office as a commissioner and in the earlier part of my life. I was also extremely involved in the advocacy movement as well, and the trajectory of Black scholars across the country. And most importantly, which I believe is my purpose in life, is to talk about the economic prowess of Black people and the historical variations that build the foundation for our future success. And so with that, I've risen through the ranks. In my early 20s, I founded the Detroit Black Expo, which became one of the largest in the country. Went on to become the executive vice president at the Michigan Minority Supplier Development Council, which is the largest minority supplier council in the country, as part of the National Minority Supplier Development Council. With that, I became the president and CEO of the Michigan Black Chamber of Commerce for 10 years, which became the largest Black Chamber of Commerce in the country. Then from that vantage point, I became the 12th president and CEO of the National Business League, which was founded 120 years ago, believe it or not. The NBL, the National Business League, is the first and largest nonprofit, nonpartisan, non-sectarian Black business trade association for businesses and trade and professionals, founded on August 23rd, 1900 by the iconic and legendary Booker T. Washington. We have over 120,000 members nationwide, with regional offices in Atlanta, Georgia, Detroit, Michigan, Los Angeles, California, Washington, D.C., with more than 367 local leagues across the country, with access to 2.6 million Black businesses throughout the United States. So that's just a little bit about me and the profound legacy and organization that I lead, and the legacy built by Booker T. Washington, and where we are today. And so with that, if you could go to the next slide, we'll get right to it. One thing I wanted to talk about is that when we think about policy and we think about the economy, the first indentured servants and slaves and folks that came over here in the early 17th century, they were not identified by race, if that makes any sense. Most of the folks that arrived, even Black folks, were free. In the midst of all of that, not only was there not a connotation, but, white folks had it just as bad as Black people. And so with that, as part of the late 17th century, race was invented here in America, and it spread across the globe. And so I bring that up to say, if you all haven't purchased this book, it's also listed up there, The Invention of the White Race, Racial Oppression and Social Control by Dr. Theodore Allen. I mean, this book is a groundbreaking foundation on how race was created for socioeconomic control. And I'll just give like a brief excerpt of it. So The Invention of the White Race is a groundbreaking analysis of the birth of racism in America. When the first Africans arrived in Virginia in 1619, there were no white people, nor according to colonial records would there be for another 60 years. In Dr. Allen's seminal 2-volume work, he details the creation of the white race by the ruling class as a method of socioeconomic control in response to the labor unrest that precipitated the Bacon's Rebellion. By distinguishing European Americans from African Americans within the labor class, white privileges were enforced. The myth of the white race through the years has been central to maintaining ruling class dominance over the entire working class. So that is the premise of why pigmentation and the identifying of Black skin and free labor became policy. And I think it's perfect for this conversation, Sierra. So with that, we get a chance to really look at, since its publication in the mid-1990s, the invention of race has become indispensable in debates on the origins of racial oppression in America. And Volume 1 examines the Irish history to show the relativity to race and racial oppression as a form of social control. And Volume 2 details the development of racial oppression and racial slavery in terms of the colonial situation in Virginia and more broadly with Anglo-America. The introduction is given by my good friend, Dr. Jeffrey B. Perry, who discusses Allen's works, contributions, and critical reception and continued importance. So I bring up this book really in terms of invention of race, in terms of Dr. Theodore Allen's contribution to this study. And if you don't know about Bacon's Rebellion is a time where the poor whites and Blacks came together in response to the ruling class elite to overthrow them. And so the slaves and the poor whites got together. They outnumbered the ruling class and they took them to task. And so with that, in terms of what the white ruling class did not ever want to happen again, as Wyatt started to, or the fight against oppression with blacks, period, and slaves, and revolts that started to take place during that time period and all throughout history until emancipation. Whites wanted to make sure that blacks, poor whites could not team with blacks. And so they created this phenotype racial construct that brought blacks and relegated us to not human, basically to cattle, and to a lower form of society, almost like machinery, so that we could be used for free labor. We were reduced to 3/5 of a human, and the one drop rule was put in place that if you had one drop of black blood, you were considered black, period. That's an interesting concept, especially knowing the fact that, all races derive from black people. And so the oldest bones and skeletons that are found, which are millions of years old in Africa, we know that civilization was born in Africa. So that defeats that very mythological sense of ignorance, should I say. And so social control is the number one pursuit. You see it today, where, society, the upper ruling class, elite whites, and white privileges that are given to white women, and folks of white skin are lifted to a higher socioeconomic status. And you see it play out across the globe. White supremacy is not just a local phenomenon, it's a global phenomenon. And so if you transition to the next slide, I really wanted to lay that foundation so that as we begin this next revolution and we really begin this next movement, that we challenge white supremacy to dismantle it at its core. Why? Because it's ignorant. Two, it's factually unsound. It's biologically not the case. And the myth has been exploited to the highest degree. There is no difference in biological makeup of any race, right? A Asian man can mate with a black woman. A black woman can mate with a white male and produce offspring, healthy offspring. And so in terms of that, we have to really dig at white supremacy for what it is. It's a system, an institution and structure that's put in place so that people of melanated skin, dark skin, can be relegated to a lower prong of society and economic status. Why? For labor control and socioeconomic control. And so with that, in terms of policy, the reason why white supremacy exists today is because it's policy. It's backed by policy. It was backed by the government. It was backed by the private sector who benefited from free labor. Even during emancipation, where Black people were promised certain rights, the 13th, the 14th Amendment, were emancipated, was supposed to receive reparations, et cetera, promised 40 acres and a mule. Not only did the mule get kicked in the butt, but the 40 acres was confiscated, even if they received it. Most did not receive their 40 acres. The forming of black codes. If you guys don't know about black codes were sometimes called black laws, which were governing the conduct of African Americans. They were best known for what was passed in 1865 to 1866 by Southern states after the Civil War in order to restrict Black people from freedom and to compel them to work for low wages and to keep them away from any economic opportunities that existed in this country. Black codes were also restrictive laws designed to limit the freedom of African Americans, ensure that their availability as a cheap labor force after slavery was abolished during the Civil War was intact. Though the Union was victorious and had given some 4 million slaves their freedom, the question of free Black status in the post-Civil War was still very unresolved. And so under Black codes, many states require Blacks to sign yearly labor contracts. If they refuse, they risk being arrested. Think about the prison system today. Folks at a certain economic level and what the higher opportunities it is for them to be incarcerated, or you could be fined and forced into unpaid labor, which existed. Jim Crow laws were also a collection of state and local statutes that legalized racial segregation. This was post-Black codes. Look at Black codes as the foundation to Jim Crow segregation and the enhancement of those laws. Named after the Black minstrel show character, the laws which existed for more than 100 years from post-Civil War area until about 1968, and the passage of the Civil Rights Act, were meant to marginalize Black people by denying them the right to vote, hold jobs, get an education, have insurance, or even opportunities. And so those who attempted to defy Jim Crow laws again were what? Faced with arrest, fines, jail sentences, violence, and even death. And these extreme organizations that were created, like the KKK, came about supported by the government to harass Blacks, to keep them away from their true economic potential. So like I mentioned, in January of 1865, General William T. Sherman met with 20 African-American leaders to tell them that land ownership was the best way for Blacks to secure and enjoy their newfound freedom. Sherman issued a field order number 15. That order reserved coastal land in Georgia and South Carolina for Black settlement. Each family would receive those 40 acres. Those settlers would also receive mules. 6 months after Sherman issued the order, 40,000 former slaves lived on 400,000 acres of coastal land. And in March, Congress seemed to indicate plans for widespread land reform by creating the Freedmen's Bureau, which was the first federally recognized bank to divide and confiscate land into small plots for sale to Blacks and loyal Southern whites. So less than a year after Sherman's order, President Andrew Jackson intervened after the assassination of our president, Lincoln at the time, and ordered that the vast majority of confiscated land be returned to its former slave owners. This included most of the land that was free. The federal government disposed of tens of thousands of Black landowners. And even though Blacks fought back, they were driven away by whites with guns and federal troops, and even evicted by force. So eventually, everything that was supposed to be relegated to us during emancipation through policy and through the gun and legal force was taken away from us. And so I think this is important. So I highlighted one, the invention of race by Dr. Theodore Allen, that race did not exist until the late 17th century. We did not even identify ourselves as Black, brown, white, or yellow. This grew over time through policy and enforcing of socioeconomic control. I taught you about 40 acres and a mule, which was promised to us, but we never received it. So when you look at the huge wealth disparities and economic disparities that exist and income disparities today, you can see why Blacks are far behind in terms of equity. I also taught you about Black codes, which were policy-oriented, exclusionary economic policies that existed that precluded Blacks from participating in the economic mainstream of society. And it grew into what we call Jim Crow segregation, which again enforced that Blacks could live amongst society, but you couldn't have any economic gains. And so even as you saw Black Wall Streets form all across the country, because we were segregated, and you look at Black Wall Street in 1921, you look at the Black Wall Streets in LA, Charlotte, Chicago, Detroit, Atlanta, Philadelphia, all across the country, we had thriving Black business districts, and they were all either burnt down, destroyed, or freeways or railroads driven right through those communities. And so as sometimes we blame ourselves, it's not to blame for our economic position. This was all a plan. It was systematic. It was structural, etc. We all know that Congress passed the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. And with that amendment, you can kind of look at where Congress passed that in the Constitution, that outlawing slavery before the Civil Rights War had ended. When the war was over, white Southerners passed these laws to ensure that we would gain some opportunity in society to protect voting rights, where Congress passed the 15th Amendment. And the 15th Amendment, however, did not allow literacy tests, poll taxes, and methods to prevent poor Blacks and whites from voting, right? And so you look at also in 1866, to ensure Black citizenship, Congress overrode President Andrews' veto and went even further in passing the 14th Amendment, which when enfranchised, African Americans could begin to exercise their political power. But white Southerners and organizations like the KKK targeted them, intimidated them, because if we remember during the time of Reconstruction, there was more Black progress in a short amount of time than anywhere in history of America with Black people. We became senators, governors, state representatives, mayors. We entered the economic society. We gained PhDs, became lawyers, medical degrees. We were breaking barriers all across the board. So again, the 13th Amendment outlawing slavery, 14th Amendment giving us political power, 15th Amendment giving us the right to vote. And then again, all of that was taken away. And if we were caught practicing or honoring our time in society, we were harassed, murdered, killed, lynched, etc., to preclude us from enjoying the same rights as everyone else. Last on this particular point is the Black Power movement, which was a revolutionary movement that you all know of, where that occurred between the 1960s and 70s. It emphasized racial pride, economic empowerment, and the creation of political and cultural institutions. During this era, there was a rise in demand of Black history courses, a greater embrace of African American culture, and the spread of raw artistic expression, displaying the realities of Black folks, not just in America, but throughout the Pan-African movement and all across the globe. And so I really wanted to highlight that because this movement, which started post-slavery and led up through Reconstruction, the Renaissance movement, the Marcus Garvey Black Identity movement, and several other major movements leading up until the Civil Rights movement and the Black Power movement, which is giving credence to what we see today in terms of Black Lives Matter. And so with that, if you could turn the slide. All right. So we talked about the Black Power movement, the Civil Rights Act, the evolution of racism. And so let's dig into that a little bit more too. So we have the invention of race, right? We were emancipated. We were let go into society, but all of the policies, economic policies that existed precluded us from being truly involved. And so until the 1960s, due to, our movements against a society in which all other ethnic groups benefit from today, we created civil rights for all of humanity. And the biggest benefactors today of civil rights are white women and affirmative action. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. But racism never ended. Why? Because although it may not have been as overt, it was institutionalized, it became structured through policy, and it became a system to keep white skin and the white ruling class in power. And at the top, and based on your skin complexion and melanin, you were relegated to a lower prong of society. And even more, the darker the skin were the blacker the terror. So knowing that fact exists, racism never went away. No matter if you went into the private sector, even post-civil rights, although we passed what I call civil no economic rights. They gave us social, economic, and political opportunities, but the economic policies were not put in place. My belief is that in order to reach true social, educational, and political success, and politics is the oil to the wheel to economic progress. That's why it's important to have proper representation, that policy is put in place so that Blacks, one, can be repaired for what they have been owed in terms of 400 years of oppression, hundreds of years of slavery, 150 years of Jim Crow segregation, and what we would call 50 plus years of post-civil rights with no economic policy, right? So racism has evolved. And when you look in terms of our economic disposition in society, the question is asked, 50 years later, have we truly moved the economic needle? Why does the disparity gaps truly exist? Why do we still practice certain terms like benign neglect? And I'll talk about that in a short segment. If you could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. What you see is recently, which has been blatant to us, is the impact of COVID-19 and the Black Lives Matter movement. So not only did we are experiencing a health crisis, we are also experiencing an economic recession and depression. And as I would say, when white folks catch a cold, Black folks catch the flu, but Black businesses caught COVID-19. What I mean by that is if you've read the recent studies that have come out and has been produced by the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, CBS, ABC News, etc., has predicted that 40 to 50% of Black businesses in America have either been severely impacted by the pandemic or are on their way to closing their doors permanently. That is devastating in terms of, one, the health impact on our communities, which the pandemic disproportionately impacted us. And then at the same time, in terms of our economic growth, where Blacks were experienced significant economic growth, growing 3 times the national rate to more than 2.6 million businesses across the country, employing well over 1 million people, with a consumer purchasing power of $1.5 trillion in economic power and influence, and billions of dollars in terms of receipts and revenues of entrepreneurs, and significantly important, Black women being the fastest growing segment of entrepreneurs in the country, regardless of race, creed, color, or sexual orientation. And so when you look at those statistics prior to the pandemic, Black folks were well on their way to exploring their true economic potential. And so although COVID-19 has had a huge impact on us, now we're focused on economic recovery. But as I would say, end quote, the revolution won't be televised, it will be digitized. And what I mean by that is this pandemic has helped to speed up the digitalization of our economic processes and entrepreneurial opportunities, moving us into the cloud, which gives us a flat, equal space to create economic opportunity to, in some cases, evade the systems, institutions, and structures of white supremacy and racism. And so not only is this our time for what I call the third reconstruction, the first reconstruction being post-emancipation, which obviously was stolen away from us, and laws were put in place such as the Black codes, Jim Crow segregation. We were given a Black bank. The white owners of that bank ran that bank into the ground, into bankruptcy, stealing tons of Black people's money. And this is why Black people don't trust banks today. And most importantly, when you think about what we were owed in terms of reparations, land, money, and the ability to form our own enterprise, that was all taken away from us during the first Reconstruction. The second Reconstruction was civil, no economic rights, and affirmative half action. And I say affirmative half action because affirmative action has benefited everyone else: Hispanics, Asians, Indians, white women, and Blacks are relegated to the bottom of the diversity pool. And this is why terms like diversity do not get it in this economy. We must be explicit in terms of Black economic progress and racial equity and inclusion. And as we focus on economic recovery and coming out of this pandemic, our aim has to be dealing with, one, the policies that exist that preclude us from building wealth as a community, but at the same time having a Black economic agenda associated with it. And obviously, the systems of oppression still in place, the enforcement of oppression is still in place, as we have seen the unarmed murders of Breonna Taylor, Rayshard Brooks, George Floyd, and a host of other Black men and women, unarmed Black men and women who continuously are policed and brutalized and killed in society today. And so when you look at that, we got a lot of work to do, but this is an exciting fight standing on the shoulders of our great ancestors who founded civilization and founded entrepreneurship in society, thousands upon thousands of years ago in ancient civilization, which is modeled by the rest of the world today. So what I'm going to do, if you turn to the next slide, and we're coming towards the end here. I really wanted to talk about inclusion, diversity, equity, access, and social justice. Again, this is our economic recovery response. This is why I applaud the leadership here in this platform for focusing on wealth, because it does matter. Equity and inclusion and solutions is critical. Again, equity does not necessarily mean inclusion, and inclusion does not necessarily mean equity. And if we don't couple either with solutions, then we're relegated to the same space. I also want to highlight that racism has evolved. It's not just in your face overtly, but it is also institutional, structural, and systematic. And in terms of policies, we have to get away from what I call benign neglect terms and labels that have been put on us that preclude us from gaining economic access and prosperity as well. And what I mean by that is terms like people of color and terms like minority, so that you don't have to deal with Black people. That's what this is all about. And we need to get to what Black people are owed in terms of repair and reparation, in terms of policy, in terms of economic disparities and equity gaps that exist in the marketplace, and also inclusion of Black people who obviously fought for, through blood, sweat, and tears, the freedoms that other ethnic groups and racial groups and gender groups and sexual orientation groups benefit from today, where Blacks have been relegated to the very bottom of the economic scale, and everyone else is benefiting off of Black people's blood, sweat, and tears to create civil rights for humanity. And so with that, as the country becomes majority Black and brown in the next 20 to 30 years, we must go hard in terms of addressing policy, but also Black people should be focusing on their own socioeconomic and political evolution as well, and focus. So it's time for change. If you let's get away from them terms, people of color, minority, and things of that nature. Let's talk Black. If you can go to the next slide, please. Here are some things to talk about in terms of solutions, how we can start to address Black equity and inclusion. We can start asking for companies to increase their task force and put in place organizations and task force where Black people can start to put forward real policy to address where we are in companies, start providing data-driven goals. As an economist, I'm data-driven in everything we do. But most importantly, it used to be he who holds the gold rules. Today is he who holds the data rules. And if you can't measure it, it don't exist. So we need to stick to hardcore facts and data to drive our goals and objectives. Most importantly, it's time to challenge the white supremacist and racist systems, institutions, and structures. We need to start looking at companies' board of directors. We need to look at executive leadership to make sure that Blacks are on these boards. Blacks are in the executive leadership of these boards. We need to look at the supply chain, that companies are hiring Black contractors, that they are marketing and advertising towards the Black consumer, which is $1 trillion consumer base, and then corporate responsibility, the support of Black institutions, structures, and systems in terms of corporate responsibility from a philanthropic standpoint. This is what we must do. In terms of talent placement and acquisition, it's time for, I think Walmart Wells Fargo CEO got in trouble for saying he can't find Black talent, which was a smack in the face in terms of us knowing that we all have the ability to learn. There are over 100 plus historically Black colleges and universities with students coming out every single year. There's the opportunity to recruit, retain, and reward people in your company and to educate them and to train them so that they can have the same opportunities afforded to those with white skin. With that, creating cultures. Not everybody identifies with the white culture and the white race. We want to identify with our own culture and ethnicity and race, and we should have the freedom to do that. So where there are culture codes or culture fits, those racist terms must be eliminated, and everyone must be free to express themselves regardless of race, creed, color, sexual orientation, or gender. And then with that, tapping into resources, forming partnerships, and giving back in a meaningful way. What I mean by that is not just a handout. We don't want handouts. We want opportunities. We want a level playing field, and we want economic prosperity so that we can provide for our families and our communities that we reside in, and also support our communities, etc. And gain economic independence. And so with that, if you could turn the slide further, we are toward the tail end of this. I hope I didn't waste too much of you guys' time. I was only given like a day to put this together. I could talk about structural racism, institutional racism. I could talk about benign neglect. But what I'll do is open it up for questions. I did want to mention the fact that if you can turn past the question and answer piece to the next slide, I did put up some very affirmative readings for those who are in the seeking of knowledge. And so when affirmative action was white, it talks about white folks and how they benefited from having a leg up post-slavery and why they have wealth today off the backs of Black people. White rage, white fragility, the cost of privilege, how to be an anti-racist for those folks who are asking Black people, how can I get in the game? The caste system, which is global. I told you racism is a global phenomenon. It's not just local. You can go anywhere in the world and see the caste system, which identifies you by color all across the world. And then weapons of whiteness, how white women have been able to hide under the cloak of racism to take advantage of both white male benefits and at the same time affirmative action benefits, and also hierarchy in the workplace in terms of gender. And so we must now call that out, because not only did 40% of white women own plantations and slaves, it is now coming out that white women are getting over on everybody in terms of their abilities to use the system and hide under the cloak, but still benefit with white privileges and white skin. And they use it as weapons of whiteness. And so the terrorizing of Black women in the workplace is extreme. And you can talk to Black women all across the world. I don't care where you go, what their experience may be in the workplace in terms of dealing with not only the white male, but the white woman. And then the color of money in Black banks and the racial wealth gap. This is the history of banking in our country by Dr. Baradora. She did an excellent job. The new Jim Crow, I'm sure you all know Michelle Alexander, who talks about how we are constricted to our economic status in our communities and almost guaranteed to end up in a place that we don't need to end up. And then the color of law, segregation, housing, insurance, policy, you name it. Dr. Attorney Rothstein puts this thing in context from a policy standpoint of how we are relegated to the status and also the communities that we live in today that don't have resources and the same types of quality of life standards that white people are afforded in society. So with that, I hope I didn't let you down, sister. I did get a chance to bring my knowledge to bear, and I'm happy to answer any questions. If you go to the I'll leave this one up, but on the last slide is my contact information, my phone number, my email address, and also on my website, nationalbusinessleague.org. And if you could go back to the books again, this is about knowledge. This is about Black excellence. And if we're not coming with our A game, then you need to go home, right? There's no more handouts anymore. If you're not prepared to do the best that you can do or seek help to get to your best, then we need to start focusing on that. And people who got it, it's time for us to go back to those who don't have it and lift them up and give back and provide for them the same opportunities that we were afforded so that we can make our community whole. And that's why I'm a vegan, proud plant-based diet person. I'm heavy into yoga, mind, body, soul, and spirit. It's all about frequency, energy, and vibration with us. Black people are uniting all across the world, and we are rising back to our original place in civilization, and we are claiming our thrones again. And so with that, if you're scared, say you're scared, but it's okay because you can't do nothing about it. The spirit is on a journey in this physical form, and the spirit will always, always continue to fight for freedom. Thank you.
I love that. All right. So let's do this. And you guys, this is really his phone number. I called it and got him on like the first ring. This is really his phone number. So if you want to reach out.
You're special. Your name came up.
Really? Yeah,
it popped up in the office.
Oh, yeah, because you were probably trying to avoid me from last time.
No, and I would never avoid melanated genius.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So, all right. And let's answer some questions, you guys. And I try to reserve 30 minutes for my part of the presentation, which is going to be focused on who we are and what we do, but I'm going to get done with that. I'm gonna get it done in 15 minutes because I know that we have questions that we want to ask Dr. Harris. There was one. How does racism in current politics affect the economic progress in the Black community, and what must be done going forward?
It restricts us. And so, that's a very simple question, just like I outlined post-slavery during emancipation. We were on the way before the assassination of Lincoln to gaining reparations, gaining economic repair and reparations. We were on our way to giving at least a foundation for us to build upon the many, many years of free labor that we provided for helping to build this country. And so with that, all of the exclusionary policies that have been built into the systems, institutions, and structures that you see today preclude us from gaining our true economic potential. Now, we've had some individual successes. We've had some people who've been able to navigate the system. We've had some people who have been successful because of generational wealth. Black folks whose grandmothers and grandfathers were able to navigate racism and create a foothold for certain folks. I'm a benefit. I'm a fifth generation educated Black man, but not every Black person in America can experience that type of scenario. Some people have never, ever had the opportunities that some of us are afforded due to policy exclusion. And so to answer the end of that question, what must we do? It's time for us to start forming Black organizations that have political action committees that demand what Ice Cube put forward, a Black agenda. And in that Black agenda, I know some of y'all from LA, right? So I know y'all love Cube, but he was right on it. And what I mean by that is as Frederick Douglass says, power does not concede to anything other than power and demand. And so this system, we need our demands, and we need it in policy. Don't give me press conferences and platitudes. I want to see policy. And so I hope it answers your question.
And the thing, I want to have a quick combo with you as well. So the thing that I did read the Black Code by Ice Cube, and one of the and I know he consulted with people and all that good stuff, but one of the realities is that he was mentioning a lot of stuff that was already law. And the problem is that either he didn't know it was already law, or the people around him didn't know it was already law. But there's this disconnect between the law and what politics and what's actually occurring. And our first speaker, Aisha Braveboy, she talked about voting and how at some point we got these voting rights, but it took hundreds, it took years for us to actually be able to vote. So in the world of politics, one of the things that she was saying, she's the state's attorney for Prince George's County. Do you know Aisha? Okay. All right. One of the things that she was saying was that we have to be more active in politics. Now, how do you, what's great about this group here is it's Black people and it's our allies. And I don't know if you had a chance to see our team that created the Black Wealth Matters educational series, but just let me get to the end of it. I'm the only Black person on the team. And so there are a lot of people that are just as frustrated as we are, and they want to see justice because we all know what injustice looks like. So my question is, for the average everyday person to be involved in politics, what does it look like? Like, can you give us like maybe 3 levels for the person who doesn't want to do anything, for the quarterback chairperson or whatever, the one who's kind of active, and then maybe the person who's full on, I need to be active. I'm going to be out in the streets. And I'm
no question. And it's not both or and, right? It's everything, right? It's everything. It's a multi-pronged approach. Just like Black people are not monolithic, right? Some of us vote Republican, some vote Democrat, some reject the political system entirely. And our politics is different. We're not monolithic. We have different ways at looking at things. We're a tribal community. So when you go back in terms of Blackness to the beginnings of civilization, in which all of humanity was birthed from, we were tribal communities that spoke different languages, different cultures, and we interacted with each other based on energy, frequency, and vibration, and the laws of nature and astrology and things of that nature, which were all taken away from us to control us socially through policy. So how do we get engaged? Number one, I'm gonna always say this, is we need an economic base. When you have an economic base, you're able to push a policy agenda. If you look at Congress and the system today, who creates policy? Lobbyists, people who have interest. And so if I have interest and I have money to back it, I can persuade or even put into office the person I want to carry through that policy. If you're not carrying through my policy and I didn't put money into the game, skin in the game, guess what? They taking you out, right? And so at the end of the day, Black people have to start focusing on our economic footprint and building our economic infrastructure as the first pillar. Then once we have our economic infrastructure, then we need to start creating political interests and political representation that will push our policies, right? And I think that's absolutely critical. And in terms of our allies, and if the allyship is real, I think this is all something that can be achieved even quicker. So when you see the Black Lives Matter movement, the reason why the Black Lives Matter movement was so successful is because it was multicultural, multi-gender, multi-orientation, right? And so when you approach it from that vantage point, you're not isolated, marginalized, or disadvantaged in your political approach. So number one is economics. That is the key to our liberation. 2, education, educating ourselves about the political process. All that stuff has been removed from our educational system. So we must become educationally trained and politically trained so that we can start putting together the policies necessary. And then we got to get our Black organizations back in the game.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. Civil rights movement, we had the National Bar Association. The National Negro Bar Association came out of the National Business League, right? Mm-hmm. And so in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, these were the organizations fighting in the courts, creating policy for Brown versus education, creating policies for civil rights, etc., and fighting on civil rights. So we got to get our Black institutions and structures. And so if we have true allies will be supporting these organizations and providing them with the resources and capital so that our institutions and structures can start to challenge white supremacy and all of its policies that exist in institutions and structures. So I hope I answered your question.
You did. And I know that there's an organization out there. It's actually on the East Coast. What area do you live in?
I'm in DC is my headquarters. I'm from Detroit, but in terms of the East Coast, DC is like the connection to the East. So,
yeah. So Mayor Candace Hollingsworth, is that her name? In West Bellamy, they created the Our Black Party, and I know that's what they're trying to do with the organization.
Yeah. No question. Mm-hmm. No question. It's about what you see now is pending the election, whoever is anointed into that situation, they're going to have to deal with the Black agenda, because if they don't in these next 4 years, mm-hmm. Black people will have already started to move away from the two-party system. And what you will see is the repeat of the 1960s and 1970s, where they had the National Black Convention, mm-hmm. Start of the forming of a Black party, but it was infiltrated by the Democratic Party, right? So whoever's in power, whether Trump or Biden or whoever wins out this situation, they got 4 years to deal with making right Black economic power, or what you're going to see is a total leaving of the two-party system and the forming of a Black political party. That's what you're going to see. Yes,
absolutely. And I think that it's evolution.
It's
evolution. And one of the things that I like about you as well is that you're such a entrepreneur. And you were talking about Reconstruction. You should add this book to your list if you hadn't read it. Have you read Black Fortunes?
Yes, I got it in the back. Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
That's one of my favorites. But what I love about Black Fortunes, and I don't think we're above this at all. What I loved about Black Fortunes, especially the Black women, and for those of you guys who don't know it, I talk about it way too much, is about the first 6 Black millionaires out of slavery. And what was interesting was 3 were men, 3 were women. And the women, a lot of 2 of them would have to hide that they were women, and they definitely had to hide that they were Black. So they would have other people making deals on their behalf, whether they were a Black person passing to be white or white people, period. And I'm saying that to say that during this day and age of digital stores and all that, one time I was buying some face cream, and if you look at all the marketing, it was like Black woman, Afro, and I was like, ooh, what girl owns this company? Yeah. It's 5 white guys out of San Francisco. And so it's like, there's no correlation between your business and you. So if you want to buy a business and create whatever persona you want, I think that's pretty cool. Everybody's doing it. There's so many Asian owned businesses that try to, pretend like they're Black owned. And I just want all of us to kind of have that fluidity in business.
No question about it. And this is why it's so important. And we must all come together. There is no Black race or white race. There's one race. There's one race, and that's towards humanity, equality for all. Hopefully 50 years from now, after we kick and dismantle white supremacy's butt, we won't even have to have this conversation. And matter of fact, our children are not having this conversation anyway. They've already figured out the system is ignorant. And
Yes.
it must be, so they're not buying into what grandma and great grandma dealt with. They rejecting it outright. They come into the interview, they looking at who's interviewing them. If they don't see themselves, they walk out the door with their sandals on.
Right. Right.
So, you're dealing with a more conscious, reminds me of our ancestors who resisted this. Is all a game. And what I love about it is our white allies at that age, they realize that the trick is being ran on them too. White women are being used from a misogynistic standpoint. And then in terms of the white privileges that are supposedly guaranteed to the lower class whites, it's relegated them to the lower prong of society. So when they come home, they can't pay their bills either. They're oppressed as well, economically. And so, what you're realizing, especially young people are realizing, is this is not the world that we want to live in, right? We're not playing this old game no more. While we see other people making billions and trillions of dollars and in their sleep with no work ethic applied to it. Right. So this system has been rigged for a long time, and it's public now. It's transparent, and and I love it. I love looking white supremacy in the eyes and just dealing with facts and data. And our allies have to really face this and say, we're going to wipe this out. We're going to team up with you guys. We're not going to ignore Black people, not Hispanics. Not Native Americans, not Middle Eastern, not immigrants. That's fine and well. Yes, you all have oppression as well. Oppression should be eliminated, period. Okay, in terms of anyone. But don't get it twisted. Black people are old. Black people created the way for other races and ethnicities and genders to be successful in society today. And Black people need to get the same reparations that Jews, Asians, and everyone else have already received. So at the end of the day, we coming for ours, right? And it's by any means necessary. And we're intelligent enough. I don't have to yell at you. I can just show you what's already on the paper, right? It is what it is, right? So this is a fun time in society, sister.
It is. It absolutely is. And thank you so much. And we're going to have you come back and just talk about entrepreneurship. Just entrepreneurship. One day, okay?
All day if y'all want to make some money.
And his organization is in the sticky notes, the National Business League. Please go to the website, look at it. I know you have a webinar, a virtual conference coming up, right? A virtual convention.
So we have our National Black Supplier Conference coming up. We have over 125 Fortune 500 companies participating. Any business owner or contractor that's looking to do business with corporate America, the conference is free this year for Black businesses. So please sign up. We're giving our COVID-19 special. We're a part of the $10 million grant with the federal government. So we're making it free, and we're just trying to get resources to Black business. And next year, get ready for the National Business League's Economic Freedom Movement. So we're coming to LA. We're coming all across the country. We're running a 50-state campaign towards our economic freedom.
Perfect. So we definitely want to. We'll be there too, because we want to help those small businesses that are the suppliers.
Oh yeah, sure. Let's do it.
All right. So perfect. So I'm going to zip through our part in terms of the financial planning. I'm going to minimize you and just turn your sound off. Is that okay?
Yes. Let me do that.
All right. Perfect. All right. And so you guys, we're going to zip right through this. So the long and short of it, let's talk about who we are. My background is finance. I do believe that money is important, and but I was lucky. I had the privilege of learning about money and really just lucking up on it in school. However, speaking of the opportunity in finance, there are not a lot of African Americans in the financial sector. I was one woman to graduate in my graduating class, and there were like 3 Black men. So our goal right now is we do want to bring more attention to this financial conversation. And also, of course, we want to help people plan for their future financially, no matter where you are. But we also want to recruit, train, and develop people that are interested in this. Because even current Black and Latino financial advisors, the Forbes did a study, 58% of them had never even thought about finance as a career. And they're currently financial advisors. And this might be you as well. So the next slide. However, this is an opportune time in history for us all to create a financial revolution. And what makes us unique is that we help people from all walks of life, not just the wealthy. So I'm going to really speed through this, but we are going to reach out to everyone. So you guys take our call. We'll be reaching out to you guys and touching back in. You're also going to get a recap of the video so you can share that with your friends and family. But keep 3 things in mind. Do you know anyone that can benefit from this information? Could this information help you and your family? And if you're interested in building a business in the financial service sector. So as Dr. Harris was talking about, business ownership is reemerging, especially for Black women. And historically, what we were taught, he and I are the same generation, we were taught to go to college and become professionals like doctors and lawyers. And now we're all thinking about being business owners because we know that's where the power is. And more of you guys have probably thought about being business owners than you thought about a business and finance. But I'm inviting you to consider finance as a business now. And the reason why is because finance can help you create generations of people who actually understand how money works and how to protect their families with that money. Money is power. And plus, we have a system that helps you build a business that can change your generations to come. And when you're thinking about being a business owner, I mean, we're all thinking about it right now, right? And it's a movement, like Dr. Harris said. When you're thinking about it, there are responsibilities like payroll, marketing, bookkeeping, HR, and all of those areas. But what's great is we take care of that for you here in this company. But there are still things that you do need to consider. All right. So just to make sure you guys aren't falling asleep, do me a favor, type yes in the chat room if you agree that people need more financial education. Type the number 2 and yes if you think that people need help planning for their future. Type the number 3 and yes if you believe that people do need to make extra money while paying less in taxes, whether it's money for their college loan, to pay, save for their kids to go to college, to pay down their house, to buy a house to help support their families. And I'm sure we got some yeses to some of them, right, Kathy? Good. All right. And that just answers your basic questions about supply and demand. Now, in terms of the next thing, which is an effective business platform, our system is very simple. And so explain the system, think of McDonald's. They are one of the most lucrative businesses in the world, and the company really runs on robots and young people. So using our system, many agents have changed their lives through this company, and there are endless opportunities. But what if you're already in your dream profession? What if you already have your dream job? Now, the interesting part about most people in the African-American community is that you might have your dream job, but many of your family members might not be at your level, or I guarantee you, you will have some family members that are not at your level because of the effects of this political system, which has maintained and upheld the systemic racism. So here we have a different system that allows you to build a successful business no matter your background. And as a result, we have people from the mortgage industry. We have New York Times bestselling authors, homemakers, NFL Hall of Famers, taxi drivers, anyone with a desire to win. And wouldn't it be nice to expose your family members to that? Because honestly, most people don't need a handout. They really do need a hand up. They need some guidance and mentorship. In terms of compensation, in college, we're taught to be employees or to create our own practice. That's what I was taught as a finance person. But we all know that the real independence comes from being a business owner and making money while you sleep, right? And having access to those billions and trillions, like Dr. Harris was saying. And that can be with a system and having investments that also create that cash flow. So as a company, we want to transition people from that employee, self-employed mindset to that of being a business owner. And that's where you can create that passive residual income to free up your time so you can use it however you want. And we know there's no shortage of hardworking people out here, right? Hard work is not winning the game, but we do know that here, hard work can equal actual dollars in your pocket in terms of you making a successful business. All right. And then timing. Let's talk about timing. Timing is everything. COVID and the BLM movement have created an awareness of why we need to impact our families and our communities and the world right now. And this is the perfect time to plan for the next chapter of your life, right? You're sitting at home, you have extra time, plan. It might be time to create a financial plan. It might be time to create a career change or an addition. It might be time to refinance your mortgage, buy a home, pay off your debt, or become a consistent activist. But this is the best time to make a change right now. And let's talk about strong core values. He talked about it in culture. He said that the young kids are coming in a room, and if they don't see anybody that looks like them, they're leaving with their flip-flops on. Culture is important. Here at this company, you guys, we want to make sure people feel good. We believe in personal growth. We believe in working with your family. So many solid American businesses have been built on family. No different than Sam Walton or the Chase family. And here, there are no politics. There's no glass ceiling because you can create your own environment. And that's important. So here are some statistics that talk about the need for planning and all that good stuff. And unfortunately, in the Black communities, these numbers are worse. So in the interest of time, go past that. Let's talk about feelings. How many of you guys have felt these emotions when you go through financial hardship? The Black communities feel it more often than not, because even when we are well compensated, sometimes you're the first person in your family to go to college. So you still have to help support members of your family, or you're paying off your student loan debt, or you're in a one income household, you're being paid less on a dollar, you name it. There are so many things that are out of our control. And moving forward, money just shouldn't be. And financial security requires discipline and the ability to determine needs versus wants. We guide our clients to create healthy habits. Elizabeth Warren created that term healthy habits when she was lobbying on Capitol Hill against the credit card companies. And we think it's such a great concept. And it's just basically the habit of paying yourself first. And we teach this concept to our clients, our associates, our family. Good habits are what leads to generational wealth, because even if you do get a business, you get a windfall, you get all that good stuff. If you don't have good habits around your money, it doesn't matter. Next slide. So I hope that in the sticky notes, there should be a appointment link to schedule a 15-minute appointment with me. We'll also email you that link. But what we want to do is we want to meet you. We want to make a new friend. We want you to get to know us and see why this is important for us. And with that, when you schedule a 15-minute meeting with us, what we're going to do is we're going to get to know you and match you up with an advisor that we think fits your personality. It might be me, it might be someone else. It just depends. And then the next meeting will build on some of the financial concepts that I'm about to teach you. And then from there, we're going to help you create a strategy and move forward. But no business is done in our first meeting. And then we'll come back and we'll give you some ideas so that we can create a financial needs analysis. Now, the great thing is that you don't pay us for this, right? We get compensated from the companies that we work with. So if we do a good job, we ask for referrals because we want to meet some more people. So those of you guys who don't have the time to sign up for the 15 minutes right now, again, we'll email you that information later, and also the link for the next class, which will be in December, and all about the environment. All right, so every appointment is rooted in financial education. It's such a it's an area that a lot of people in America don't know about, and it's a vulnerable area, because I feel as if poverty has been weaponized against the Black community. So now what I want to do is I'm going to teach you a few financial basic concepts, but do write some of these down. Just remember one thing, always try to grab one thing and commit it to memory. All right, so the first one is my favorite. It's the rule of 72. So the rule of 72 is about compound interest. What you do is you take 72 and divide it into the interest rate of whatever your investment is making, and it's going to give you approximately how many years it takes for your money to double. And we all want our money to double, like right now, double, right? All right, so let's say that the bank is giving you 2%. They are not, they're giving you 0. But let's say that the bank is giving you 2% and you're 35 years old with about $10,000. 36 years later, you'll be 70 and you'll have about 40,000. Or let's say you're getting 6%. That means every 12 years, your money doubles. So by 48, you'll have 163,000. But keep in mind that the rule of 72 can work against you as well with your debts. So for example, a 25% credit card balance doubles every 3 years. 12% car loan doubles every 6 years. 6% student loan every 12 years. 4% mortgage every 18 years. So we have proven strategies to not only help you get out of debt, but help you create wealth while you're getting out of debt. And I want to share a story. So mentioning the Black contract that Ice Cube had. Listen, I love when people try, but the reason why we created this series is because we do like for people to listen to experts. We believe that experts have put a lot of time and energy into areas, and if we can just leverage their expertise, even better. So in the Black contract, Ice Cube basically said, if every Black kid was given a $500 savings bond, that would be a great idea. A government savings bond. Listen to this one. A billionaire said that if every newborn started with $6,000 investment, and it was actually invested in the stock market versus a government savings bond, that would close the Black gap. It would more than close the Black gap. So for example, if we take that $6,000 and we give it a 6% return, very conservative, in 70 years, the kid would have about $355,000. The average American has about $10,000 saved up for retirement. The average Black American, I'm not sure. And 6% is a very conservative return. We have access to investments with higher return if that fits your risk tolerance, which is why we want to educate so we can figure out what works for you. But even in this hypothetical situation, I'm thinking about $355,000, but I'm like, okay, but what are the taxes on that $355,000? Because taxes are very important. Let's go to the tax slide. So there are 3 ways that our money is taxed, as you can see from the slide. The wealthy focus on tax advantage products. And in the Black community, there have been so many roadblocks that have not given us access to those same products. Right? And the biggest roadblock is financial illiteracy. Most people didn't even know that that was a goal. It didn't matter if they were employees or business owners. The financial illiteracy can be the same. We don't know that we have an option there. The second roadblock is financial advisors. So financial advisors, we're constantly educated about tax codes, products, laws, but we only tend to focus on the high net worth. So working with someone who relates to you and understands you is very important as well. So that's why you guys, please keep an eye out for people that you think are interested in this company or this conversation so that we can grow our agency and our business too. And so with taxes, you do have a choice. You absolutely have a choice. So would you rather be taxed on the seeds or the harvest? And more of you probably have 401ks and IRAs where you'll be taxed on the harvest. And unfortunately, when you retire, you don't know what the tax bracket will be. You don't know who the president will be at that time. You have no control. Whereas wealthy people are doing the exact opposite. They're paying taxes on the CEEDs. They're using tax benefits and deductions from being business owners. And then they're putting that money into tax advantage products. Again, you do have a choice in taxes, but you also have a choice with who you partner with. So next slide, education. So in terms of our relationship, this isn't education, but I feel like it's education. I'm going to educate you about how we work with clients. So our service is a complimentary financial needs analysis, and it's really just to see where you are. So when we sit with you, I mentioned that we educate you more about how money works, a little bit more. So we gave you some tidbits tonight, but we built on that foundation. We create plans. We look at budgeting. It doesn't matter what you make. If you can't manage your expenses, we look at proper protection, you guys. Right now, there's COVID. A lot of people will be uninsurable moving forward. Unfortunately, in the Black community, we don't have a lot of insurance anyway. So that's an area of weak. But in regards to preserving wealth, a will and a trust not only protects you and your family, but it also gives you control of where your money is going. You guys, we can give money to our family, sorority, fraternity, university, church, and so on. That alone, Dr. Harris, would change so many communities if we really just all got some insurance and created a trust. So WFGIA does not offer legal services. You must work with your own tax professional. And then we talk about debt. Debt is a serious epidemic. However, we focus on building wealth while we're getting you out of debt. And then the future. Oh my gosh, I just talked to a girlfriend of mine today. Her and her husband are living in Hawaii for the next 6 months, right? How many of us would love to be there or be in another country? I mean, where you can. So all of our futures look different, but what we do know here as financial professionals is your future won't happen accidentally. You do have to plan for it, and you have to plan for it with a professional because you only know what you know. Right? So COVID has exposed the need for emergency reserve. Let's talk about emergency reserve with short-term savings. And people are falling into one of two categories. You might have too much savings in the bank where you're not even leveraging the market to grow your money, or you might not have any. But as professionals, we want to make sure your money is working for you as hard as you're working for it. And we work with some of the best companies in the world. Do you guys recognize any of these companies? What I love is that you do recognize them. I know you recognize them. I love that because so often when not wealthy, you get the generic stuff, right? You don't get the name brand stuff. These are like the name brand companies. These are the companies that are in the back of the sports team, and everybody knows these companies. They're in the skyline. So here, these same companies that you wouldn't be able to get to if you had a broker with a higher minimum, we use them for everyone because we don't have minimums. Next slide. So I have zipped through this, but in closing, you guys, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Harris. Thank you for being so generous and sharing all of that great information. And we are definitely going to have a person to give us more information about the Black Party and all that. But he's right. The economic world is absolutely the next frontier, but it's not in a vacuum. It's not in a bubble. Economics relates to everything. Without politics, without understanding politics, all our money's just going to get taken away from us anyway, like it already has. Without understanding voting, that's just the prerequisite to politics, right? Without understanding the environment, mental health, physical health, there's so many different areas that affect our wealth. So we would like to work with those of you guys here who are committed to changing lives. It could be your life or the lives of your family and your friends around you. Again, there are no ceiling, there are no politics. It's amazing diversity. And we would like to work with you either as your financial professional, or if you're looking to add a career, change your career, have a part-time career, have a sometime career, it doesn't matter. And we are part of World Financial Group, and we consider ourselves to be the heroes. And HERO stands for helping everyone rise out of poverty, despair, and hardship. We're looking to create more heroes for more families and more communities. And we consider it to be our responsibility to change the world. So to learn more about us, please check out bwmeducationalseries.com. I believe the information is in the sticky note. And don't forget to use the hashtag BWM series. Again, thank you guys so much for taking the time to meet with us. We really appreciate it. Oh, does anybody have questions for me? If you have any questions, just put them in the group chat super quickly. Let me see. Oh, one person asked, would you know where to find Black businesses such as electricians, plumbers, carpenters, etc. web source? Latoya, if you're in Chicago, there is a Chicago group for Black businesses, but I don't know if he's still in, but he can tell us. Let me see. Can you put up that info again? Let me see if he would be okay with us. What about the inequities within our own community? How we regard each other within our own race? Yeah, you know, I have a psychologist that's going to be doing the last series, the last class in his first series. Joanne, it's going to be in February, and I think that's one of the mental issues that we have to work on. There are so many people that are using this opportunity to grow, and we're not exempt. As a community, we have to grow as well. All right. All right. Okay, everybody's talking about Ice Cube. Read it. Read his Black code, and what you'll find is it's very, very.
Hey, sister, we have.
Scare me.
Oh, sorry. I hope you felt that energy and vibration, but we have a global business directory at www.nationalbusinessleague.org. So at the beginning of the year, we're kicking off our new directory, which actually works as a kind of Yelp for you to support Black businesses in your area. So chime in at the beginning of the year. We have over 100,000 Black businesses listed in every city and zip code across the country and globally.
Good. Do you guys have a listserv where we can get on there and enter our email and you just keep us posted?
Yep. If you go to our website today at the National Business League, you can sign up for our weekly newsletter.
That sounds perfect. All right. Okay. Let me see if there are any other questions. Dr. Harris, your voice just coming in like that scared me to death. I do that to my poor mama all the time and scare her. All right, Miss Farmer, I see your message. We will reach out to you. Just schedule some time with us. Everyone's saying thank you, Dr. Harris. You're so amazing. We really appreciate you. Thank you. And that's it for us. Kathy's going to play a little bit more of our commercials. You guys sign up. Take a second. If you came on a little late, these are all our commercials. Yes, it's being recorded. You're going to get an email tomorrow when you're going to get an email tomorrow with the recording that you can watch. All right. I think that's it. Thank you, Saria. You're welcome, Latoya.
Crossing county lines just to make my name in the city. Took everything, put it on the line, cause I never break or back down. One shot is do or die. Welcome to the bottom of the bottom. Me and Cena Solomon. If I saw him and I had to get him, yeah, I probably got him. Corner boost to mix up the solution. I am such a problem. Crazy goon and going up that pollution with a group of goblins, super choppers, and they hoot and holler when we scooping dollars, lose the partnership. But if you started, we gon' finish it. Welcome to the wild side. You know, welcome to the wild. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I reign on the top. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I cannot be stopped. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I reign on the top. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I cannot be stopped. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I crossing county lines just to make my name in the city. Took everything, put it on the line, cause I never break or back down. One shot is do or die.
And I'm running the kingdom with all my ability, using my strength and agility. Money.
Put your hands up, everybody know that. Don't hold back, got you on go Jack. Go DJ, that's my DJ. Party on replay, party on replay.
Crossing county lines just to make my name in the city. Took everything, put it on the line, cause I never break or back down. One shot is do or die.
Welcome to the bottom of the bottom, the insane asylum. If I saw him and I had to get him, yeah, I finally got him. Corner post to mix up the solution. I am such a problem, crazy gooning, going up that pollution with a group of goblins, super choppers, and they hoot and holler when we scooping dollars, losing partners. But if you started, we gon' finish it. Welcome to the wild side. You know what the business is.
Put your hands up, everybody know that. Don't hold back, got you on go Jack. Go DJ, that's my DJ. Party on replay, party on replay.
I'm a boss, I'm a king, I'm right on the top. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I cannot be stopped. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I'm right on the top. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I cannot be stopped. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I'm right on the top. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I cannot be stopped. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I'm right on the top. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I'm a boss, I'm a I am a king on the throne and I'm running the kingdom with all my ability, using my strength and agility. Money. Welcome to the bottom of the bottom, the insane asylum. If I saw him and I had to get him, yeah, I finally got him. Corner post to mix up the solution. I am such a problem, crazy gooning, going up that pollution with a group of goblins, super choppers, and they hoot and holler when we scooping dollars, losing partners. But if you started, we gon' finish it. Welcome to the wild side. You know what the business. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I'm right on the top. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I cannot be stopped. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I'm right on the top. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I cannot be stopped. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I'm right on the top. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I cannot be stopped. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I'm right on the top. I'm a boss, I'm a king, I'm a boss, I'm a I am a king on the throne and I'm running the kingdom with all my ability, using my strength and agility. Money, power.
Been running fast, crossing county lines just to make my name in the city. Took everything, put it on the line, cause I never break or back down. One shot is do or die.
Put your hands up, everybody know that. Don't hold back, got you on go Jack.